a ransomware group, which when we were talking about this with one of you previously, you reminded me to be careful of how I pronounce it when we're live. And so I think I'm probably not going to try and say it because our accents might be misconstrued. But the first part is black, and the second part is
welcome back.
Cyberspace.
Empirical training. Do you know what I mean? So like empirical training.
Hello and welcome back to the Cyberspace podcast by Empirical Training. My name's Josh, and I'm joined today with the full house, AJ, Robbie, and Vaughan, all four of the Empirical trainers, cybersecurity professionals in their own right, and mentors every other hour of their waking day for our lovely community and anyone else who wants to get into cybersecurity. So we've got a busy day today, a busy topic. So I'm not going to do my usual kind of questions. Hey, how's what's going on in the world of cybersecurity for you guys? What was it like in work? I want to instead talk about nation-state actors. Do we want to level set for people? What's the difference, challenge with a nation-state? I think we mentioned it before, but like if someone's just joined to the pod, what's a good way to think of a nation-state actor versus, a script kiddie, to use at the end of the scale?
The way I think of a nation-state hacker is they're a lot more organized. So there's usually a lot more of them together all working on a joint mission. And along with the name nation-state, they're typically backed by government entities and the country, not only through resources in terms of manpower, but through funds as well. So they get a lot more money that they can put behind these attacks.
Mm-hmm. Money, patience, sophistication. Also, sometimes referred to as advanced persistent threats. When they kind of want to remove the state-sponsored connotations, but I think in most of those cases, there's normally some link there. Certainly in the ones we're going to look at today. So this is a Russian state-sponsored hacker, a hack group rather, named APT28, Fancy Bear, Forest Blizzard, or Sophacy.
I always love the names.
Yeah. Which one do you like the best?
I quite like Fancy Bear.
Yeah, the CrowdStrike one's always hit, to be fair.
Yeah, the Fuzzy Bear has always been quite a good one as well.
Is that a CrowdStrike coined one, is it?
Yeah, anything with the animal is a CrowdStrike.
Yeah, they've done a brilliant job there as well because that kind of naming conventions, and we talked about that before, and they've got ones so bear means Russia. Now, maybe they shouldn't all use that one. Panda is what they use for China. Then fancy, I forget what the other ones mean, but there's usually sometimes it means nothing, sometimes it's linked to something. Sometimes
I thought it was just a describing term, to be honest, just as a bit of a null word, but it's interesting to know there might be something behind it.
No, I think you might be right. They try and get inspiration, but it's not normally connected. It's the spider was the one I was thinking of, so it's a different animal. So those are not necessarily state-sponsored ones, but those are financial actors who target financial organizations who are after financial gain.
Do they make their way through the alphabet like the UK do with these storms?
Maybe. I don't know. Wait, well, what was our hack name from last podcast? I think we were called Empirical Strike.
Empirical Strike.
Oh,
yeah,
nice. I like it.
Yeah, that was a submission from the audience. So thank you for that. APT28 probably the most boring, but probably the most scientific. I quite like those ones because at least there's no connotations or prejudices in that name. Fancy already leads me to start thinking some things about this actor, which may or may not be helpful. Anyway. The reason I wanted to talk about them is there's been an uncovery or a release from this research company I wasn't too familiar with called Volexity, who have been studying this actor, and they've released some information they did. I think it was an attack in 2022, so 2 years ago, but they've only just kind of come to life now. And I'd never ever heard of this or this term anyway, which is a nearest neighbor attack. Now, have you guys heard of this before? Recently times?
No,
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I know you have because I mentioned it to you already today. But thanks for playing dumb, gents.
we were clearly listening to you. That's all.
So this is a way that you can attack, compromise infrastructure that is in physical proximity to your actual target, what you're actually going after. So in this case, they were trying to target a certain organization, which hasn't been fully exactly named, but is a large enterprise that had a Wi-Fi network they wanted to get through, and they managed to kind of target it through password spraying attacks. So they breached a company through the enterprise Wi-Fi network, even though they were thousands of miles away, essentially. So, Wi-Fi pineapple, I never used that, or like the flipper. You can crack people's Wi-Fis. They're public.
Yeah, it's all over social media. You must have
Yeah.
come across it, if not.
So it sounds similar to that, but like they haven't used that as technology. But they're based in Russia. This is a US organization, and they found it really difficult to compromise their security. So instead, they went after a building next door, an organization in the building next door, managed to compromise them, and used a laptop or a machine that had Wi-Fi connection. I'm not sure if it was a laptop next to a window in a conference room that was in range of the next door building's Wi-Fi ranges, and then from that, use password spraying techniques to kind of basically crack through the Wi-Fi and gain access to their network. So I never heard of that kind of. You talk about supply chain risk these days. Vaughan, Robbie, you probably have those conversations with customers. AJ, you probably have them with your internal staff. Like, we do know what risk we're introducing here. Did you realize you could have risk from the Wi-Fi network, from the buildings next to you, just for being close to your Wi-Fi network?
I mean, it's going to open up a lot of the scope in these pre-onboarding calls and sales calls, right? Because it's not even just about looking after your own defenses. Now you're also kind of concerned about other buildings in your proximity. And, if organizations that you're next to might be susceptible, how do you even look out for that and ask that question? Like you say, and Josh opens up a new attack surface.
Or a certain company's going to want to be utilizing locations that don't have any neighboring buildings.
Yeah,
somewhere where it's super segregated. Like some of the Tesla buildings are in the middle of nowhere, aren't they? And there's no surrounding locations next to them.
Or you're encasing your office in a Faraday cage.
That's what I was thinking. Faraday buildings is the next tinfoil hat building is basically what they are. We might be at that stage. Or is it the end of Wi-Fi and we all go back to wired networks and those kind of corporations?
Is it that much of a risk? Is it?
Well, good question. Somebody in the chat just said, I love the word risk appetite. And I think that's a good point. Like, is this that one niche edge case where it's cool to talk about? Or is this something we need to all be thinking about when we're addressing security?
It's probably going to be fine, isn't it? I don't think. I think it'll probably be okay.
Wise words said on a board level meeting, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's probably going to be fine, isn't it?
By the incident response consultant.
Yeah,
yeah.
That one doesn't sound like too much of a risk, to be fair. But I don't know. I might be wrong. I might be eating my words tomorrow. Every company has been hacked by their neighboring office.
And I mean, this type of
quite kind, though, doesn't it? Oh, it's the nearest neighbor.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound that bad, does it?
With this type of attack as well, if you're the type of organization that holds data that could be attacked in this way, I mean, obviously every company is going to think they have the most important data for business operations, but I mean, there's certain entities, government, weapons manufacturers, all those sorts of things, they might be the target of some of these attack types, but I mean, your local manufacturing office, they're probably not going to be the target of this attack, to be honest, because they probably potentially don't have the data worth stealing in this way because of the resources required.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you made a great point about what is the threat model in situation here? Do you expect somebody to be coming after you with that level of patience to kind of go the long way around to compromise you? Because just got my notes back up a little bit more. And what I was trying to say about how they first got credentials. They first got credentials for the main target, large enterprise, let's call them. So from now I'm going to call them the large enterprise, and then the neighbor is the other person, the other group I'm going to talk about. They managed to basically brute force or put credential stuff, a password spraying attack against an online application that the enterprise owned. And then the MFA kicked in and realized, okay, over the internet, we need to connect with MFA. If we can get locally on the network, we can just use the password that we have and bypass the MFA. So it's a scenario where MFA saved the day, and that's probably enough for a normal actor, right? They'd probably be like, okay, I can't get in. Goodbye, I'll move on to something else. But these guys got the determination to kind of think, okay, if we can't do it over the web, how can we find a way to get on that local area network? Lo and behold, the neighborly attack.
Nice, I like it.
is in my mind. I'm just seeing the, hey, can I have a bag of sugar type of attack? For like visualizing this, they kind of the digital version of that.
I mean, it does also make you ask the question, even if you're on the local LAN, why wouldn't you have like an MFA-based conditional access in place still anyway? So, I mean, if someone's bypassing you on a local LAN without MFA, you probably need to look yourself and ask some questions.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great point. That again, we're focused on the cool, sexy part of this story, but it boils down to a basic solution to kind of mean this will never be an issue for them in the first place. But then going back to the risk appetite piece, they probably did realize, hey, our biggest risk is external facing threats, so let's make sure we have MFA out there, and they probably have less of a priority on the internal pieces, because ideally you should have it everywhere, but if you're gonna go for your big bang, for the bang that can get your biggest buck. Is that even a phrase? What am I trying to say today?
It's been a long day at the office.
Yeah, they're trying to prioritize it. You can see where they start the internet facing one, but if you're going to be, this is what's going to happen. You'll find somebody who's got the patience to go around the houses and find a way into you. So beyond that, the story gets less interesting. It's generic, living off the land attacks, utilizing Windows services and tools to kind of advance their control. And initially, the Volexity didn't scout this as as they said, it was a novel act. They hadn't seen it before. But apparently the motivation was data collection for individuals' expertise on projects actively involving Ukraine. And since then, Microsoft has cross-referenced it to this APT28, also known as Fancy Blair. So where we are today, knowing how they did it, what their motivations were, and connecting it to a well-known state-sponsored actor. So and anyone, goals of state-sponsored actors, how do they differ from maybe your financially motivated hacker?
Well, they're usually going for government. Usually they're related to government secrets or maybe more sensitive infrastructure. It all depends on the goals. Like you say, well, they can be financial related actually. Like you see, North Korea have been actively trying to compromise cryptocurrency companies in an attempt to actually get more money for the country. But a lot of them are usually targeting more government organizations and specific sensitive data.
I'd class them all as disruption based personally.
I think there's definitely that angle, and you probably got in the Russian side of things now. I remember a while ago they said, hey, if you're going to attack Western targets, we're not going to arrest you. So they got the maybe not, let's say, state sponsored, but state
green light.
Permissible actors. You get a free pass. But this data stealing seems to always be the MO for, last week we talked about T-Mobile and the Chinese state-sponsored actors trying to get access to really important people's phone records and tap their phone wires, right? Intelligence is worth loads of money to these big governments and nation states, unless maybe, as you point out, AJ, unless you're North Korea and your funds are more important for you right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, next one I wanted to talk about. So on the theme of state-sponsored actors, I think it's probably worth going into some other news I saw this week about a ransomware group, which when we were talking about this with one of you previously, you reminded me to be careful of how I pronounce it when we're live. And so I think I'm probably not going to try and say it because our accents might be misconstrued. But the first part is black and the second part is B, and I'm not going to even try and say it. It's not a swear word, but it sounds a lot like one. And that is the name of this ransomware family. They have self-given themselves, as they often kind of do. They want to build a name for themselves and build a bit of a reputation, so that they can extort people more effectively, and also sell their ransomware as a services that may be further down the line. But this drew up some interesting stuff about how connected these actors are. So Conti, who remembers Conti?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another one I got to be careful of saying. But they were probably the biggest ransomware group until their demise at the beginning of the kind of Russia-Ukraine conflict, when they released the chat logs and some Ukrainians internally kind of took them apart, dismantled them, released all their kind of inner secrets, and they dispersed. But from that, we saw how sophisticated they are. And ever since, people have been expecting them to reappear. Any other ransomware like gangs you could think of that you guys kind of battle on a daily basis? And I'll see if they fall into the category of what I'm about to talk about.
In terms of on a daily basis, yeah, it's always hard to know, though, isn't it? If you're being directly targeted by a specific gang, I can't say that we've always attributed them exactly back to the right to the right APTs or the right gangs, for example. But I've never actually come across I haven't actually done or responded to a ransomware case in my time.
You've never let it get that far. Well done.
Hasn't got that far. Yeah, I wouldn't say never say never, but you try your best.
Yeah, I mean, you got play ransomware, lockbit ransomware. There's a few TI based ones that we're seeing not so much targeting our customers, but prevalent in our customers' industries.
Nice. So, yeah, I think some of those that came out were also Russian group ones, and it's not a big group, but apparently they seem to be in close coordination. And that Conti one was so sophisticated, had HR departments. Basically, people had to ask for holiday, and they had kind of training documentation. What everyone thought would happen is they would disperse and not retire after, hey, we had a good run, we made loads of money. They're probably going to reimagine themselves. And so this Basta ransomware, I feel more comfortable saying it in halves. They have been observed using the Quackbot malware. Quackbot, we've seen that one before, haven't we, gents? And that's detection. I don't want to ask you what you think that is, but I'm pretty sure that's a bit of everything, right? Trojan, initial access, credential grabbing, the works. So the government's tried to take that one down 2023 August. So we might have done a pod on it. And they took down all the botnets hosting the Quackbot. Calmed down for a minute. Takedown success was really short-lived, though. We've seen it pop back a couple of months later, and now there's another one called Pikabot. And what's interesting is starting to see that all these kind of Russian ransomware groups all kind of use the same one, almost like they're sharing them amongst each other. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, yeah, AJ, maybe to your point, is there any point of us looking at these individual groups and giving them names, or should we just look at the kind of the pointy end of the stick? What are they coming at us with? What's the malware and techniques?
Well, I actually thought that I was asked in the interview quite a while ago what I thought of threat intelligence and attributing it to threat actors, and at the time I didn't really think it was that necessary, but yeah, I'm still on the fence with it. I think it's more useful these days to actually attribute it to the gang, a specific gang, but I think, yeah, most importantly is just to figure out what they're actually doing and trying to actually detect it and actually defend against it. But I quite like the threat intelligence side a lot more these days compared to, I didn't really know too much about it before.
So yeah, we can always get better at threat intelligence. Vaughan, do you do any of the activity clustering, to use the SANS term, or kind of the?
Yeah, not so much nowadays. When I was an analyst, I was quite interested and deep in threat intelligence. I was following all the DFIR feeds and all the malware changes and all that type of stuff. But more nowadays, not so much. What I always, still to this day, baffles me is how a singular new IP gets attributed over to a specific threat actor, because it's kind of happening in isolation almost. Obviously, depending what that IP is dropping, if it's the same sort of payloads, that's one way of clustering it in. But yeah, and I guess not really a question, but surely a lot of these IPs overlap with the different threat actor groups as well. So you might attribute one thing to Fuzzy Bear, for example, but then it might actually be associated to Fancy Bear. So yeah, definitely some gray areas with some of this categorization, I'd say personally.
That's a good question. If we're definitely talking about these Russian, the consensus is that these Russian ransomware gangs are a bit more collaborative or in coordination than we realize. What's to say they're not sharing infrastructure as well? So
yeah, I'm pretty sure that does happen as well.
Just changing the name.
Yeah, do they
changing their name as well? Maybe they're all the same group. You never know.
Yeah, and how do we know which one's associated to which gang?
Yeah, maybe they're laughing now, thinking, "Haha, we are just one big ransomware gang," and yeah.
Maybe it's like departments at the company or something. Like HR and engineering. That's like Fancy Bear and Fuzzy Bear.
They made it a competition. Who can get the most and
most state secrets from US.
Yeah. So Rob, you at the moment you're working more with like maybe younger SOCs, security operations centers. So when you've been kind of developing them and adding new programs and strategies there, do you even bother with the threat actor kind of classification stuff, or is there too much to kind of get done first, and this is much more like a luxury for an established or mature secure operations center?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, like the guys do concentrate on it now, even though they are in their infancy in terms of the services that they provide for customers. But yeah, in terms of activity and what we see on a daily basis, it is quiet. So there isn't a lot of data to go off and utilize and grow from and progress. But yeah, we integrate most of the same third party threat intel feeds into the SIEM and conduct the regular threat research as well.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I was thinking of that too linearly, but actually, yeah, it makes perfect sense. You use the work other people have done on profiling of them, and like you mentioned, you might have free time. You don't want to be sitting there twiddling. You want to be stretching them, and there's probably good guys in there who want to, guys and girls. You think that's a non-gendered word, but I realize it's not for everybody. So yeah, the value I think is interesting because it's like the sword is always what you want to use an analogy. This is what the sword is that you've been hit with. That's what you want to worry about most, right? If a sword is a sword, no matter who's picking it up, there's probably no good reason for you to pick up a sword unless you're going to try and stab me. So then the other indicators of like who's behind the sword, like the IP address, the infrastructure we talked about, maybe other certain techniques or kind of code stamps or signs in their malware. It lets you know who they are, but then ultimately you're like, oh, you detected the malware, didn't you? Did you detect it on the code signature in there? So this one, or the IP address. So I think, yeah, it has value, but it's a lot less valuable. When it works, it's so exciting. So like, yeah, we caught them recycling their techniques but they still held on to one command and control beacon domain. So we had a trigger on that caused us to go and investigate it. But yeah, definitely a challenge for a young and immature SOCs to kind of do that effectively and profile their own actors. You need thousands of customers to be looking at, right? Really, to be able to track these things effectively. Otherwise, just consume.
Yeah, the guys do like to create some like more general threat write-ups for our customer base and internal ones as well for the teams in the company, just for visibility.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So with just looking further into this, the article and the research that they've done, there does seem to be the other side of the view is, hey, these are decentralized people that aren't really that linked. They just happen to maybe stumble across the same stuff from the same Russian language forums because that language does unify them, right? It's not like we can search up in English language forums and we have loads of people in our community who are from all the English speaking countries and a lot of countries that have English as a second language. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's just the fact that they have Russians talking to each other. They start to learn about these different tools they can grab, like Quackbot or like the Pikabot, the new one that they are using. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is more of a fuddy article where people wanted to kind of talk about the big ransomware gangs and talk about the new big one that's emerging out of there. I'm not sure how valuable this type of stuff really is for us who are defending these organizations. But so I guess the final question is this helpful for the governments who are trying to take down, if they're trying to actively take down ransomware actors, if we're talking about the best of the best fighting the best of the best, is it futile? What do you guys think of that? Like obviously the Quackbot takedown happened and then it was over very quickly and back up and running again. So is there any value in these takedowns or arrests?
It's a difficult one because there's always going to be a demand there. It's illegal activities. People are gaining massive amounts of money from these operations. So you shut down one gang or you shut down one ransomware software, and it just brings up another potential opportunity for other people to step in and take their place. Just like any organized crime, you go for the top guys in these big like drug gangs, and then once they're in prison, then the people that are below them just take their place. So it's just going to be a never-ending spiral, which is a very negative thing to end on. But
yeah. To your question, Josh, I see a bit more of a philosophical question, like who is gonna come out on top? Is it gonna be the attackers or is it gonna be the defenders? And in terms of the techniques, do we have better attack techniques or do we have better defense techniques? To me, I think whoever has the best attack will always overturn whoever has the best defense, but I'm yet to see any information to tell me otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So chat have just said about the Hydra
Yeah.
thing as well. You cut off one head of the Hydra,
Yeah.
one grows, and
Absolutely.
yeah, people are still paying the ransoms as well, so that makes them incentivized to keep doing it and get better at it. So, and we've lost. I mean, yeah, let's find a positive way to end on this because we're coming up to the end. But like,
So now we're all doomed.
I got a positive spin for it. It means cybersecurity is always going to be an evergreen industry, and we're always going to have jobs in order to try and defend against these companies and emulating their attacks in order to make the defensive guys better from a red teaming approach.
So Vaughan's words of wisdom is: when the world is burning, we sell buckets of water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll make our swords the sharper ones.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's interesting with cybersecurity. We have a more tension, a world with more tension than probably it has been for a while, and that if they're going to really cut down these cybercrime gangs, it's got to be a collaborative global initiative, which we did see happen with like Russia, US, East and West kind of joining together to kind of lock up some of these people. But yeah, we just gotta I think we've got to focus on, like you say, making our defenses so strong that they can't get in, and then they stop trying because hey, no point. We're gonna do security so well that we don't have any jobs left for cybersecurity professionals. That's the real dream.
We're gonna complete security.
We retire everyone.
Completely, mate.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Vaughan, AJ, and Robbie for your insights there. I took you into some deep topics there with kind of state-sponsored actors. So good to kind of zoom in on the sensational, but also bring us back down to earth. What actually is the reality like and practical? How does it look when we actually work in our daily lives as security professionals? And thanks very much to the chat. Special shout out to Jack, who's been super active and given us lots of great points back then. Good to see you.
Very engaging.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
Yep. So it's done.
I think that might
That's a wrap.
you know what I mean? So like,
Cyberspace podcast.